Okay, so this was supposed to be solar install part 2.5, but it's since turned into a full part 3 here. And the reason for that is because about 5 days ago, when I got finished with the install up to that point, I realized a couple of things that were incorrect about what I had done so far. So there's nothing wrong with the way that the system is working. It's running everything in the trailer perfectly fine. As of the last time, the 12 volt system is still yet to be made to operate independently from the AC 24 volt to 110 side. But the issue that I noticed fairly early on after playing around with the system for a couple of days is that it delivers the power just fine, and it measures the power coming out just fine. However, it doesn't measure the power coming back in. And so from a monitoring perspective, that is a bit of an issue because of the fact that the shunt is not working properly when it's meant to calculate what kind of time you have with the loads that you have going on in the trailer when being offset by the amount of solar that you have coming in. So what I didn't know is that, and I guess when you hear electricity explained, sometimes people will use like a water pipe as an example. So the larger the water pipe you need for a larger amount of power to get from water to get from one end of it to the other. The smaller the pipe, it might be higher pressure, but there's less water coming out the other side. So electricity works in a similar way, where if you have a large pipe, more amps or a large cable, more amps can travel from one end of it to the other. So the more amps you're dealing with, the thicker the cable needs to be. This is made slightly more complicated when you introduce voltages and stuff, which is probably, I would say, better than half the reason why we decided to make a 24 volt system, because the higher the voltage goes, the lower the amperage goes. So you can, at a higher voltage, move less amps from A to B and still accomplish the same amount of watts at the other side. So that's why we did this. What I didn't know, though, is that on the shunts here, I've got the negative load side connected to the inverter, so it's measuring everything there just fine. And if we were using the inverter as a charger, it would also measure the charge coming back into the batteries from here. But what I didn't realize is that the solar controller, which is responsible for charging these batteries almost entirely when we're not connected to the grid, well, it would be entirely when we're not connected to the grid, also needs to be connected to here. Otherwise, the shunt has no idea how much power is going back in. It just constantly is measuring the power going out. This Renogy one up here currently is reading 95% because it measures current coming out of here in amp hours, but I also have it set to realize that once the voltage has reached 28 volts, that's a full battery. So it constantly, this will go down, 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 down until all of a sudden the voltage gets to the right amount, and then it'll pop back up to 100% again. But it doesn't give you any kind of a measurement as to how long your loads are going to run. It doesn't show current coming in, only current going out. So we need to take a bunch of this apart to fix this, is basically the long and short of it, so that we can get it working properly. So having realized this over the last couple of days has also made me realize that this piece of equipment, which is going to find its way somewhere around here, this is the piece of equipment that is going to convert the 24 volts coming out of our battery bank into the 12 volts that the trailer uses. And This will have to be connected to the shunt as well because of the fact that while the fridge is running off of the 12 volt, that obviously is using power, but without it being connected there, our shunt and our Victron Bluetooth monitor will have no idea how much that power is. So part 2.5 is now part 3 because it does involve me going back and redoing some of the stuff that I've already screwed up. So that's what we're going to work on first today. Okay, so I've got everything connected to the system side of the first shunt, which is connected parallel to the Victron one, which is the Bluetooth one. And it's a bit of a mess. I've got everything sort of like jammed onto that one post. I did order a couple of days ago a bus bar that I'll put just below this, so it'll just be the one coming down to the bus bar, and then everything else will neatly connect to that. I also got a positive one too, which isn't really necessary, but I'll probably install that too. And then what I'll end up having as an end result of that is a lot of this wiring, this smaller wiring here, will end up tying into here instead, which should just look a little bit better. As far as operation is concerned though, we've got the solar panels back on again, as well as the charging back on again. And the the Renogy shunt that's in here is showing that we've got 4.24, 4.3, whatever. It's all over the place because the sun is a little bit all over the place today, but it's showing that we've got positive amps coming into the battery now, which is what we wanted. And the little arrows on the battery in the left top there is pointing up, which means we're charging with more amps than we're taking out. And then the Victron one is showing on the shunt side now that we have positive amps coming into the batteries instead of negative amps. So we're producing more power basically than is going out. Now I have the fridge disconnected at the moment because the 12 volt isn't working off of the down converter that I still have to put in here. So there will be a small load that gets introduced to this that so far looks like it's only about 3 amps. But I mean, even if the fridge was plugged in at this point, it looks like we're making more power than we're using. Okay, so it's time to connect the 24 volt to the 12 volt system, which is what this thing is for. So on the back, we've got 2 inputs. I've got the grounds actually for the 12 volt and the 24 volt already bolted on here. Basically the 12 volt one was the chassis ground that was coming out of the wall at the very beginning that came with the trailer in the first place, and then the 24 volt one is the one that I've just run back to the shunt here, so that anything that passes through this piece of equipment will also be measured by the monitoring system that we have in place as well. So the only thing that's left now is to set up the 24 volt red positive and the 12 volt positive on the bottom. So both of the grounds are shared in the center here, and then we've got 24 coming in and 12 coming out. Okay, so we've got that converter on the wall now, so everything should be working on the inside without the assistance of the inverter at this point. I still have a bunch of wires and stuff to clean up, and I'm using some wires that I'm eventually going to replace. This is the one that came with the trailer that was originally tied into that bus bar into the disconnect there, and I'm gonna replace that with a better wire with some better connections on it. But I'm gonna wait until I have the bus bars where I can just kind of tie everything in over here and then go from there. The system itself, as far as the charging side of things is concerned, is working much better. The Renogy shunt up here, we actually do have a little bit of sun, at the moment, so we're, even with the fridge running, we are at a positive 12.5 amps or so, and the battery is being charged despite the fact that we've got a small draw on it at the moment. I've kind of, so I ordered those bus bars to put into the corner, but what I also did is I ordered from the same manufacturer as the batteries, the big batteries that are in here, which is eco-worthy. I've ordered a 12-volt 30 amp hour battery that I'll install kind of in this area here. And at 12 volts, what my sort of plan, or what my thought process behind this is that coming out of here, before going into the trailer directly, my plan is to run this system into that battery. This system in the trailer stays at a constant 12.2. So it'll always make sure that that battery is at a constant 12.2 at a minimum. But then my other thought with this is that if I take this little system here that is currently turned off and tie that into that same battery, during the day, that little 50-watt panel that's on the roof will put a slow charge into that battery, hopefully keeping it full all the time. And then at nighttime, when there's no sun, our 12-volt system will start pulling from that little battery there to run the fridge at night, so that it's not actually using the bigger batteries here that are meant to do like our larger AC loads and stuff. So I think that should work pretty good, and it'll just be kind of like a little small reserve bank that's intended just to sort of carry on with the fridge and maybe the furnace if we need that at night and stuff. And that 30 amp hours, although we may use it up each night, it's is just kind of a buffer from the big system to the small system. So this, I'm still not finished here, but this is all the time that I have for today, because we're going to go to Lethbridge for the day to meet up with some friends and just kind of take a road trip. The weather is not the greatest today, nor is it supposed to be tomorrow. It's not raining at the moment, but it's supposed to on and off all day, and it's maybe not the greatest weather for camping. As it is, I'm still not quite ready to pull this thing with the way that it is, but I'm gonna get back at this again tomorrow afternoon and include that into what's now going to be part 3. Okay, we're back from Lethbridge. It's the next day, and actually while we were gone, the box of goodies from Amazon showed up, which all included the bus bars that I was waiting for. So I've got the negative one in here now. So that big mess that was all bolted down to the shunt up there is now nice and neatly distributed across this bus bar. Plus I got one with a couple of extra positions just in case something should change in the future. So I'm just about to put the positive one in now, which technically isn't really necessary to fix what I was trying to fix, but I ordered them as a pair just because I thought that sort of freeing up the sort of bunching up on the batteries and stuff too might not be such a bad thing all the way around. Okay, so I've got the red one, or the positive one, bolted in there just underneath the negative one. And like I said, this sort of isn't necessary to solve the monitoring system that was affected by not having the shunt wired in correctly. But there was some stuff with regards to the gauge of the wire that was coming out of the solar controller. It was 10 gauge. I wanted to upgrade this to 8 gauge for charging. So I've already done that with the negative one going up into here, but I still have to pull out the positive side of this and change this out, put some half decent connectors in there, as well as this cable here I'm gonna replace as well. Okay, so we've got the positive bus bar all wired up now, and I've tied in some of the wiring here and cleaned it up with some cable clamps. Basically, this is as far as I can go. Today the 12 volt is working off of the converter for now. The 30 amp battery that is going to go in the corner didn't actually arrive today with the stuff that did show up, so I can't get that part done, but basically that's the last part to this, and then I have to come up with some kind of a lid to cover these batteries so that we can still store some stuff in here without having to worry about anything actually touching the top of these battery posts at all. So I've also wired in the auxiliary wire off of the shunt, which is this one here. It just kind of comes down to here. This wire here goes to the battery balancer to keep these top batteries and bottom batteries in sync, but then this one actually works with the smart shunt and tells you what your deviation at the midpoint is. So in my case, it's 0.4%, which is next to nothing. Basically, this thing doesn't even kick in until there's 0.2 of a volt difference between the top and the bottom, which I'm not sure what that works out to in percent, but I'm quite certain that it is more than 0.4. So everything is looking really good. And I also think that it's really neat that it can tell you that. So that's it for today. Tomorrow, hopefully that battery will show up and I can get that last piece of the puzzle in there, and then it's time to build like I said, a protective cover for this, and starting to put the storage compartment on the other side of this wall back together again so that we can start putting our things in there. I probably only have maybe another 3 or 4 more hours worth of fiddling around to do, and this is good to go. Okay, so it's the next day here. I've only been able to putter with this for a couple hours at a time, but today I've got the whole day to hopefully get this all finished now. So according to Amazon, the battery that I'm waiting for is out for delivery, so I should have it today. Couple things to do in this corner. One I've already done, which is I just kind of bundled up all this cable that was kind of hanging around all over the place and tied it back to the wall so that it's a little bit more out of the way. This solar controller, I just took the one screw out already, but I'm going to move it up into here so that it's a little bit more out of the way as well. And because we are actually going to start using this now, because that battery at 12 volts is going to be trickle charged by this. It's up there, so, and it's hooked up, and may as well use that. I think it's going to work really good because that 30 amp hour storage capacity of this little battery that should fit nice in this little corner here will hopefully charge up to full during the day off of that little 50 watt panel, and then over the night run the fridge without having to use the big system at all, so that we have it for morning coffee and air conditioning in the evening and whatever we want. And if it does turn out that for some reason it can't keep up that day, it's still going to be connected to the larger system, which will keep that battery at the very least at a constant 12.1 to 12.2 volts. The other thing that still needed to be done in here is this inverter is also a charger as well. So this input side of things up here, which is currently not being used, needs to be hooked up. And the way that I elected to do that was a couple of different ways. So one, the charger doesn't actually kick in when you're on solar priority until it's at, I can't remember now, it's like, the voltage is quite low in my opinion. So less than 20% remaining before it switches over to utility power. Our camp spot doesn't actually have utility power, so we are going to have a small backup generator to supplement the batteries on the odd time where the solar isn't keeping up. So I've got a couple of different things going on here that I'm going to do. So the first one is I'm going to hook that up, and I'm going to run that out to a 110 generator input on the outside of the trailer, so that when we do have power at our campsite, we can just leave that plugged in all the time. If for some reason the batteries get too low, the charger will kick in on its own, and it doesn't matter if it's night or day, it'll just bring them back up to full again for us. And then the second thing that I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to install a 24 volt battery charger that just sits here on the odd time that we need it. And I'll have that wired in directly to the two bus bars here so that it's always connected. And then I'll wire a second 110 generator style input for that. And what I did to do this is I got these little things here. These are meant to be plugged into the side of a wall or whatever, so that you've got this showing on the outside. And I've got two different styles of this. This one is a hardwire one, and that's the one that I'm going to plug into here. And then I have a second one that is just like this, but it has a little pigtail on the end with like a little short kind of extension cord style connection on the end of it that will plug in nicely to that charger that can just stay up there all the time. Both of these obviously will be doing nothing unless there's something plugged into them. And what's been convenient actually about these is that the old vents that the lead acid batteries used to require, which are just located on the outside here, I've already pulled the one grill off of the one. But these things here, when you take this back thing off, fit into these holes perfectly. And then with a little bit of heat, this should fit over the back side of this, sealing it all up. And then I'll run my wire up and along the top of this bar here all the way back and then drop it in. And then I'll do the same on the other one, where I'll have the other style one. So one will be for plugging into utility power when it's available all the time, and then the other one we'll use off of the generator if we decide that we want to start charging the batteries up before they're at 20% remaining. Maybe we just want to bump it up a little bit in the evening or whatever. So that's on the roster for today as well. Hopefully that battery comes pretty soon, but I'm just going to start moving that solar controller up and out of the way a little bit more, finish sending the wires over from here to tie into where that battery is going to be located. And then the other thing that needs to be done today is the remote for inside the trailer, which is currently just hanging out of a drawer right now. It needs to be installed somewhere. I haven't fully decided where yet, but got to tackle that today too. Okay, so I've got the solar charge controller kind of off in the corner and out of the way. One of the things that I need to do as well is tie in this to the corner over here where the battery is going to be. And so I have to run a negative cable off of this center one from here and over. And because that one is a little bit tricky to get to, what I've done is I've just, the wrench, because it's a nut on the back of these, they're not self-threaded posts. So I've just wrapped this wrench in electrician's tape just to cover the metal, because getting them behind here is going to be a bit tricky without also touching the one beside it. So this will allow me to do that without creating a fireworks display. So we're going to go ahead and run that wire now. Okay, so the wrench thing was a great idea. However, once I got that loosened off, the one cord that was in the back kind of just drifted over to the right, and you can see made contact with the one here. So I'm just going to pull this off of the wall now and actually disconnect all of them and double check to make sure that everything still functions on it and that I haven't just blown this up. Luckily, it's well, I don't know what side got me. I think it's because this is the 24 volt, I think, coming in. So it was in my hand when it happened, so I've burnt myself a little bit as well. So I definitely recommend that if you're ever going to use one of these, that you actually pull it off of here and disconnect the two red ones so that there's absolutely no way of that happening. I think what I'm also going to do probably as well is, if this thing is still functional, I'm going to probably heat shrink some red tubing, or actually over top of this whole thing, so that there's literally no chance that can ever happen again. There we go, all hooked back up again. I've tested it, it works. It doesn't appear as though I've destroyed the actual converter itself. I got this off of Amazon for fairly cheap, so I don't know, I may end up deciding to order a replacement for it anyways, just in case this one is on its last legs. But I mean, at least at the moment it appears as though it's functioning as it was designed. I've gone ahead and put some heat shrink onto those connections so that there's no possible way that can ever happen again, and started clipping these in down the line to come back into this direction here where that battery is going to be kept. Okay, no sooner did I get this back up on the wall and start tying some of these cables in that are meant to go towards this battery, that FedEx didn't drop the battery off. So we're just going to go ahead and start installing that now. The battery itself is quite small. It looks like it's going to fit in this corner just about perfect and not take up any room at all. The bolts, I noticed, that came with it are extremely short, so I'm not sure if everything is going to fit. I need to get two lugs onto the positive side one, and just trying to map this out in my head, and two on the negative as well. So I don't know if there's enough threads to actually do that, but I did find these in my pile of knickknacks of stuff that I haven't thrown away from. I don't even know what these are from, but they're the same thread but just a bit longer, so if I need to, I've got those. Okay, I've got the battery secured. The way that I did that was I just wrapped we had some luggage for our motorcycles that we bought a long time ago that came with these gigantic hose clamps that were meant to clamp a heat shield around the muffler so that the soft luggage didn't get burnt by the muffler. But our motorcycles didn't require that because the muffler was out of the way enough that it didn't interfere. So I've gone ahead and purposed that around this pipe. And then I put the whole clamp inside of a piece of old mountain bike inner tube that I had, just to prevent everything from scratching. So that's not going anywhere now. So I'm just going to start hooking up the charger and getting it all working now. Okay, success. The little 30 amp hour battery is hooked up. It's taking a charge from the little solar panel on the little 50 watt one on the roof. The voltage at the battery right now is 12.8. I presume the fridge must have kicked in maybe, because the voltage on it when I put it in here was 13.2 or something, so there's probably just a bit of a sag on there. The little gauge on the inside of the trailer reads in common with this, so the voltage coming into the trailer is consistent with what's coming out of this battery. And basically the trailer is going to run this battery to run the 12-volt system entirely until that voltage drops below 12.2, in which case the big batteries will start to send power over to it to keep it online. So my hope is that the 30 amp hours is, providing that this was charged all the way full, which at the moment it isn't, will run the fridge and, you know, the odd light here and there to, you know, get up in the night or whatever, until the sun comes back up, and then that little solar panel will replenish hopefully most of what got taken out of here, and then whatever it can't do, we've got the big batteries in here to pick up the slack. So that all looks really good. The next step is I think I'll actually run my little battery charger out here and hook it up to this, just to top it back off, so that we're not waiting all day for the solar panel to do that alone. And then I'm going to move on to wiring up these generator plugs here. Okay, got the charger on the little battery there. We're up to 13.5 already. So we'll just let that run for a while until we can get that at a full charge, and then hopefully the 50-watt solar panel on the roof will keep it topped off throughout the afternoons that we're using it, so that we're going into the evening with a full charge or close to a full charge to take over the fridge and stuff. I've gone ahead and plugged in to the input side of the inverter, and just ran that up and over the bar there down to where I've plugged in that input on the outside of the trailer. Just heated up that rubber boot here because it was a little bit too small to fit over the existing pipe that was here, but after putting a little heat on it, it's actually fits just about perfect. And then this is what we have on the other side, and I would wager to say that that fits about as perfect as you could ever want as well. So I'm actually really pleased with how that worked, not only for how it looks, but also because it's completely reversible too if we decide to go with a different trailer and the new owner isn't interested in all this stuff. Because certainly if we ever sold it, we're not just going to give it away. There's quite a bit of money that goes into putting all this together. But now I just have to run the second one up and over. I don't actually have a 24 volt charger here yet. It should be here in the next day or two. But I'll go ahead and run the other one up and through and kind of get sort of ready for it, so that when it is, it's quick to hook up. But other than the battery, or sorry, not the battery, the monitor for the inverter and remote, if you will, pretty much this is finished now. I still have to cover something over top of this to protect it from getting short-circuited or whatever, with something falling on it or whatever might be in here other than this stuff. So I'm just going to run inside next and try to figure out where the best place to put that remote is, and we'll start working on that. Okay, so we've got the last one in. This one has just got an outlet on the end, and I will send that up and around once the 24 volt charger is ready to go in. I'm not doing that today. I don't even have it in my hands at the moment. But I've got the inlet mounted into that other hole, which I think turned out pretty darn good. The battery is charging off the sun. I've also got a little battery maintainer putting a slow charge into it as well, so I'll let that run for a little while until we get up into the 14 point somethings. And then the last step was to build some kind of a box for the tops of the batteries, just so that we can put things here and not have to worry about starting a fire or damaging any of the equipment. I'm still using the strap around the whole thing, which works even better actually now that I've got this sort of 5-inch deep lid that I've made for the top of it. So I do believe that as far as the solar is concerned, that that's a wrap, other than the charger that still needs to go in, but that's minor. I've got the remote on the inside of the trailer just wired into the inside of a drawer at the moment, just because, mainly just because I'm not like fully sure where I even want it to go yet. So I do want to be able to use it, but I'm not exactly sure where I'm committed to drilling holes in the cabinetry and stuff to dedicate as its new home. So we'll just use it in the drawer for the first little while, until between the two of us we can kind of decide what we want to do there. But everything is working really well. The big batteries have been in float mode for most of the day. To be fair, we haven't really done a whole heck of a lot with the inverter as it is. It used to be sort of in charge of running the DC, but I mean, now that we've got this in and everything is kind of separated so that can run whether the inverter's on or not,